It's your boy Ethan the Dragon King, and today is going to be the deck profile for my commander, Miriam Sentinel Worm. This is by far my favorite commander and my most played among all the decks that I have. And so today, this is what I've got for the deck so far. We are still working on updates, and hopefully you guys will see what you guys like about it. So starting out with the deck profile with the lands, we've only got 2 blue basics in terms of basic lands for so far. We have more of the mountains and forest because we have more green reoccursion in the deck than we do other cards and colors for the 3. And then at the moment we only have 3 shock lands, and we also have only 3 fetches, unfortunately. Still trying to get the rest of them, but we have spots prepared in the deck already for when we finally get the rest of the shocks. Or, not shocks, but the rest of the fetches. 5 more fetches, and we'll have the full set that we need for the deck. Some of the other lands we've got Training Center, Rejuvenating Springs, and then we've also got Channel Lands. Oh man, I'm gonna butcher this. Ottawa Soaring City, and then Boseiju Who Endures, my bad. And thankfully for their channel effects, makes super. Oh man, come on, will this thing? Okay. If it doesn't focus, I will have their effects right there for you guys. And then next on our lands, we've got the Cavern of Souls. Got to make sure that commander is able to come out without no interruptions. It's really difficult, especially for a 6-drop, to keep casting it over and over. Which leads to our command beacon. Because, mercy, this is the ultimate get out of jail card when it comes to having to cast my commander for the 5th time. Then we got Command Tower, Haven of the Spirit Dragon, and then we have 3 of our flip lands, which these will probably be one of the ones we switch out for some more of the fetch lands, but they're really good so far. You can flip them to choose your land conditions or whatever ones you need in situations. And then we've got Dreamroot Cascade. It enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 more lands. Cinderglade enters the battlefield unless you control 2 more basic lands. And then this one is Sulphur Falls, which will also be getting out of here soon, because it requires you to have an island or mountain. But moving on from our lands, next we have our sorceries. So our first one up today is Time of Need. Search your library for a legendary creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. 2-drop, really good, especially when like most of the creature base, especially for dragons and stuff like that, are legendary, which is perfect for searching them out. We've got Farseek, 3 visits, lots of ramp to get the deck going. Kodama's Reach and Cultivate, Jessica's Will. I'm really glad I was able to pick this up when I did, because mercy, that red mana helps a lot, especially when we need to ramp out more early game. Then we got Tooth and Nail, usually a really good win con for the deck. Last March of the Ents is a really good win con. And then Blast Act is in here just for emergency circumstances. Heaven forbid freaking a board wipe be an essential for helping fix board state when it's not in our favor. Next, we've got our creature base. We got Birds of Paradise starting out. Got a Delighted Halfling, more of the Mana Druids. We got Goblin Archromancer, good reducer. We've got Corelsa Scale Singer. We've got a Pseudo Dragon in here for our Spark Double. We got Beast Whisperer to help get that good card draw, because it helps get around when people are counterspelling the heck out of our dragons. At least we can get the card draw from it. We got Displacer Kitten, helps get more of our ETB triggers in here and make a bunch more clones that we need. Sakashima, same thing as our Spark Double. And then also Sakashima of the Imposter as well for more copies of our dragons. Roaming Throne in here makes it so easy for us to get at least 3 dragons on the field. Plus, because it is a dragon when it's on the field, you basically can get 2 Roaming Thrones, which is astounding. We got Dragonborn Champion. Gotta be careful with this one, especially when you get into the end steps of the game, because that card draw is not a May. And with this deck, it does a lot of damage. So, big watch out for that one late game. Goldspan. Love it when the treasures pay for double, especially when we have a lot of token generation in here. Dragon Broodmother. Tag this with Doubling Season. You got a really nasty combo on each person's turn. 3 bodies apiece. Scourge of Alcaz. This is where the big ETB damage comes into play. When it or another dragon enters the battlefield under my control, create X. It deals X damage to any target, where X is the number of dragons I control. And that's exponential growth, especially when you have a lot of bodies coming on the field. Terror of the Peaks, great card. When your opponent tries to cast a card that targets it, deals 3 damage. Or you have to pay 3 life extra to target it. And when another creature enters the battlefield, it does damage equals to its power, which is astounding. Wrathful Red Dragon, when I control is dealt damage, a dragon, it deals that much damage to any target that isn't a dragon, which is awesome because that means when somebody deals combat damage to it, I can redirect the damage to the person's life or their creature. We got Bonehorde Dracosaur. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. If you exiled a land card this way, create a 3/1 red non-land card and create a treasure token. A lot of text, and rightfully so for a great card. Honestly, makes so you get benefits either way. The issue I have with the card in mid-game is if you get that and you're not able to play the cards in exile, you lose them, which is a big yikes and a risk in the count. But it's worth it when you get all the benefits just for it being a land or a creature. Then we've got Izoan Dragon Legacy. Same thing as Terror of the Peaks, kinda. So this one, instead of dealing the power for its damage, this one does it for the mana cost. So casting Dracosaur for 5 deals 5 damage, but when you got 2 of them, 10 damage apiece. So we got Thassa's the Butcher. Great card, makes all my stuff have double power when it attacks, which is crazy. But making sure we get it on the field with haste is the mission number 1. Then we have Ganax, Astral Hunter. When we have this with our pseudo copy guys, like our Sakashimas or Spark Double, great combo. This is where our token generation comes in too. When it or another dragon enters the battlefield I can under my control, create a token, a treasure token. Then we got Scourge the Throne. We don't have many combat triggers in the sense of things, but when it attacks for the first time each turn, if it's attacking the player with the most life or tied for the most life, untap all attacking creatures. After this, there's an additional combat, which is awesome. Get 2 combat phases off. And we've also got our Hellkite Tyrant. When it deals combat damage to a player, gain control of all artifacts that player controls. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 20 more artifacts, you win the game. Which is great, especially because with Old Gnawbone as our next card on the list, it just says, oh, you deal a bunch of damage and you get pretty much all the treasure for it. With all the treasure generation we get, having an easy win con such as Hellkite Tyrant's pretty easy to understand. And then we've got Kahoot Unraveled Ancient. So this one's pretty awesome. It's almost a win con to help dragons pop off. When it attacks, add X mana of any combination of colors, where X is the total power of attacking creatures. Spend this mana only to cast spells. Until the end of the turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. So That's an attack trigger, which is in itself glorious because you get all of this mana whether they block or not. And it's great as well because as soon as you pass combat, you can just pop off and pretty much be fine to go. And then we've got our man here, Tarka World Render. Whenever a dragon you control attacks, it gains Stealth Strike until end of turn, which is toxic with dragons like Gnawbone or even Terror of the Peaks that are 5/5s. 10 damage apiece is a big old yikes. Then we've got, oh man, I'm going to butcher this one, Trevera Hellkite. This one's also great because another attack trigger, which is, okay, me realizing there's more attack triggers than I realized. When a dragon I control attacks, create a 6/6 red dragon creature token with flying. Which is great because even if it's, let's say, a 1/1 from our Dragon Broodmother, that means that it will trigger on our Hellkite right here, and we will get a 5/5 from it, which is awesome. Or, sorry, a 6/6. And with that right there, that is our creatures. Now on to our instants. So for our instants, we've got our tutors, we got our mystical tutor, we've got a world tutor. I apologize for my quality, mercy. My camera must be acting a mess right now. 1 second here, I'll try to fix it. Hopefully that fixes the quality, mercy. So the next one we've got is our worldly tutor. It's our second one here for our search cards. We've got our basic destruction, beast within, heroic intervention to help us when people try to board wipe, or I try to just live my board wipe. Got chaos warp. It's pretty good to use on opponents, but we can also use it on our stuff if, like, we got a tapped artifact like, I don't know, our Volt, like a tapped Volt or something like that. We can cast warp that away and get us out a potential dragon body on the field, which Mira makes copies of. We got our Stifle in here, Tail's End, counter target activated ability, triggered ability, or legendary spell. We got Pact, probably, in my opinion, one of the worst 0-drop counter spells, but a really effective one too, especially if you have the mana to pay on upkeep relatively easy. Then we've got Swan Song, which is a counter target enchantment, instant, or sorcery, which is great. Good counter spell. And then another win con, which is Kindred Summons. Choose a creature type. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal X creature cards of the chosen type, where X is the number of creatures you control of that type. Put those cards onto the battlefield, then shuffle the rest of the revealed cards into your library. That is astounding because it doesn't specify non-tokens. So tokens, even if they're 1/1s, 6/6, whichever, they count as dragons, which means it'd be very easy to immediately win the game off of Kindred Summons and just reveal all the dragons in the deck onto the battlefield. On to the next ones we got. We have our enchantments. We have our Mystic Remora. Normally we only keep this around for 2 turns, but if it's a steady game or whatever, we can keep it around longer. Rhystic Steady is amazing as well because you always gotta laugh a bit when people are like, want to pay the 1? Most people do not. It just annoys them. But it's great card draw, especially when you have Rhystic Steady and Remora both on the field. We've got Exploration, good ramp, especially when you're able to get additional lands out there, help ramp off pretty fast. Dragon Tempest, one of the big win cons of the deck. When a creature with flying enters the battlefield under your control, it gains haste until the end of the turn. And when a dragon enters the battlefield under my control, it deals X damage to any target, where X is the number of dragons I control. Same thing as our dragon guy right here. And then we've also got Life Finds a Way, which is a great card because it means we can get more copies of our tokens whenever a non-token creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under my control. Populate. Create a token that's a copy of a creature token you control. which is great because it means we get more ETBs and more triggers to get more bodies on the field. We have 2 more Ascendancy. Creatures you control have haste, and whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under my control, I may draw a card. The may is what's saving grace here as well, because it means we don't have to deck ourselves out when we have a lot of bodies heading to the battlefield. Next card we have is our Rhythm of the Wild. Creature spells that control can't be countered. This is a saving grace for my commander, because everybody does not like the commander entering the battlefield. But this second effect is the cherry on top for the deck, because non-token creatures I control have Riot. They enter the battlefield with my choice of a 1/1 counter or haste. We want to do haste as often as possible, but if we know we're not able to win, just giving it a 1/1 for next turn to be safe is the best call. Next, we have Sneak Attack. One of the greatest cards I can hope for, but it's pretty steep cost for it. You may put a creature from your hand onto the battlefield, and it has haste, and then sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So all the stuff that enters the battlefield for the turn gains haste, and you only have to sacrifice the original, so the copies still stick around, and it makes them all essentially 1-drops. The issue is sacrificing half of them at the end step. But that's okay, because again, most of the triggers make it so it's not too terrible. You still have bodies and you have your effects from main 1 to end phase. And then we have our more draw support, our Kindred Discovery, choose a creature type, and then whenever a creature of the current type enters the battlefield or attacks, draw a card. Unfortunately, it's not a may, because if it was, that would also help for not decking out as well. We have a lot of stuff that isn't may when it comes to the draw. And then we have Virtue of Knowledge, either a instant or our enchantment. Copy target triggered ability you control, and you may choose new targets for the copy. And then the permanent over here is, if a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, it triggers an additional time. Kind of like Roaming Throne, except for it is a enchantment. And then we've got our doublers here. We got our Doubling Season. And then we've also got our Primal Vigor. Though I might end up taking this one out because it is general 1/1 counters for everybody. And it also says that if one or more tokens would be created, that's also general as well. So if somebody is running Scoot Swarms against the deck, it'd be very devastating for the deck in the sense of the power it would have against Mira. Now off to our last one, which is artifacts. Lastly, we have our artifacts. Proud to say we have our Lotus Petal here. 0-drop, sacrifice it, add 1 mana. Next one, we picked this one up not a while ago. We got a Mana Crypt. At the beginning of your upkeep, flip a coin. If you lose the flip, Mana Crypt deals 3 damage. But it's a 0-drop that gives you 2 extra mana. Pretty good. We've got our Soul Ring here. Tap for 2 mana. And then we got our Vault. Again, if you have to tap the Vault early game to get that extra mana, and you have Chaos Warp in hand, you can just Chaos Warp it away and potentially get yourself a dragon body on the field. We have our Thought Vessel, our Arcane Signet to help mana fix if we run pretty rough on colored mana. We have our 3 Signets. We have our Signet, Gruul Signet, and then Izzet Signet. Help mana fix, and also just good 2-drop sets in general when you're ramping. And then we've got Herald's Horn. Helps you get that extra card draw if you just reveal a dragon. When it enters the battlefield, choose a type, and it costs 1 less. Helps get that commander out extra early. And then we've got Urza's Incubator. When it enters, choose creature type, and then creature spells of the type are 2 less to cast. Which, with both of these on the field, literally just makes the commander a 3-drop. But easier said than done most times, especially with them both being 3-drops. We have Chumile of the Inner Sun. Most of the deck, surprisingly enough, is 5 or less, which means that at the beginning of each of your end steps with the Discover 5, it's great because you basically get all of the drops you can hope for, or at least most of them you would want. And then we got Pandamarnicon, which is basically another kind of roaming throne. If an artifact or creature entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent I control to trigger, it triggers an additional time. In total, like with the deck right now, there's a lot more I'd like to work on with the lands, and I would also like to add more different types of creatures, searches, and stuff like that. But as of right now, that is what we got currently, and that is the video for today. I hope you guys liked the video, and that you guys have a great day.